You are now listening to the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Welcome to They Live by Film, a podcast dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I am Adam Lundy, and I am joined as always by my co-hosts Christopher Haskell and Zachary King Bryant.
Hello, hello.
I'm
Full
given
names today.
Christian names. You're in trouble.
I,
How are we all doing?
Doing great.
I'm doing good. It's a little early for Chris, so I think he's still like half asleep over there, but I think we're doing okay.
When I travel for work, I have this debate because sometimes I have like a 5 a.m. flight, which means I need to be at the airport at 3:30. And at those times I just stay awake. This is right on the edge. But I did not stay awake. So I'm rested and ready for this.
That's great.
I used to just fall asleep at the airport. Like I can't fall asleep on a plane, but I can sleep in an airport. That's what I used to do.
Nice.
See, I've never driven to the airport. I've always been driven by somebody to the airport, so I just sleep in their car.
See, I can't sleep in cars either. It's like a whole thing. Like if the mode is moving, I am not sleeping.
Fair.
I just can't do it.
That's understandable.
I'm terrified of sleeping in the airport unless I have like 8 hours before my flight. Because there's like a whole thing about you can't leave your phone just on the floor for an alarm, so you just like sleep. And I'm
like
a
you'll
pretty
miss the
heavy
flight or whatever. So
yeah, exactly.
I thought you meant like your stuff will get robbed or whatever. But no, it's okay missing the flight. That's fair. I'm the same with like public transport. I would never be able to sleep on a train. It's like, what if I miss my stop or whatever?
I'll make this quick, but when I was coming back from Eastern Europe a couple years ago, I had the most miserable amount of time awake. So the day started, we woke up, and I won't get into the whole story about how the guy in our hostel pissed all over our stuff. That's a story for another day. And so we start the day, we get on the train in the Czech Republic. We're on an 8-hour train back to Warsaw, Poland. We get to Warsaw, Poland at night because now it's just how long it's taken everything. And we start trying to sleep in the airport because the airport actually doesn't open till 6, even though it's international. So don't sleep at all. Can't find anywhere comfortable. Get up at 6. We go into Warsaw, Poland. We get on the 1.5-hour flight back to Paris. We have an 8-hour layover in Paris. And then after that, we get on the plane and it's about 12 hours back to the US. And so I don't know how many days that was, like how much time shifted in that time. I just know I didn't sleep a bit of it. And
That
I
sounds
wanted
like
to
hell.
die. Yeah, I wanted to die.
Utter hell.
That's brutal, man.
Any other businessy stuff? I have a few things to get through for once. If we're okay with me hopping in on mine.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Cool. I've just noticed this is probably the first time where like this is again, sorry for the tangent here. But this is probably the first time where like football related stuff has happened before we've recorded and we haven't talked about it. So let's keep that trend. Let's not talk about football.
Well, there was my any other business.
Right. So what did I see? I saw a kind of a mixed bag of stuff. So in terms of newer things, I think it might be my first 2025 movie, The Monkey. Let me just quickly scroll here.
Oh, hell
See
yeah,
if
the monkey.
no, sorry, the second 2025 films I saw Companion at the start of the year. Or is it my third? Hold on, let me scroll more. Depends on if you count Nosferatu as 2024 or not. Technically, it's 2025 here, but obviously not for anywhere else. So my second 2025 film, we'll say, The Monkey. I don't know why people are shitting on the monkey. It's just a fun time. I don't
Thank
know.
you.
People were like, they saw, obviously with Long Legs, pretty sort of serious tone and stuff like that. So maybe people were just kind of thrown off by this essential horror comedy, with fucking insane kills and gore and stuff. So I don't know if that just threw people off or whatever, and like they had like misset expectations going in, so they rated it low. But like it was just a fun time. It's just a good fun time if you like like Final Destination movies or whatever, but this is even funnier than a Final Destination movie. I think there's a lot of dark comedy in here. Um, Theo
And Perkins has a
James,
small part, and he's even really funny in it.
yeah, he is. He's
But
funny in as well, and Theo James is really good in his sort of dual role as well. So he's really good. The cast in general is solid across the board. So The Monkey is a good time. Don't know why people are hating on it. It has like a 2.7 on Letterboxd or something, which I think is just ridiculous.
wild.
It's a fun. It's not like high art or anything, but it's a good time. If you like, horror with a little bit of dark humor and gore and crazy fun kills, it's just a fun time. So I don't really get the hate for it. Um, I renewed my Mubi subscription back when we were watching Decision to Leave on the last episode. I renewed my Mubi subscription because it's on Mubi, so it's just the easiest place to go watch it. So I watched a couple of other things on Mubi. The first one I watched was a really great film from 2023 called The Settlers. Um, Zach in particular, you would love this movie, man. It's so good. It's
I seem to remember you telling me to watch it. I still need to.
Yeah, it's great. It's basically like a Western, but it's set in Chile, during um the colonization of Chile.
Okay.
Um, so it's basically a Western where these three guys, so one's a native, and then the two others are colonizers, and he's the natives like their guide, and he basically has to guide these people to hunt down and kill the native people in the area where they're at. Um, the cinematography is phenomenal. Um, it reminded me a lot of. Have you ever seen the film Meek's Cutoff, the Kelly Reichardt film?
Yes, a long time
Um,
ago, but I didn't see it.
Reminded me a lot of that. Very kind
Yeah.
of methodical, open spaces. It's a beautiful film, about a real tragedy, because it's all based on true events and stuff like that. So The Settlers is fantastic, and it was pretty short as well. It was, let me just double check here. 101 minutes. So, just over, like, 1 minute over my usual cutoff. Um,
I
for
know this was a hard decision for you to hit play. You're like,
I
I
know.
don't
I
know.
well, I just took into account the credits, so I was like, okay, with credits, it's double digits. Um, yeah, it was a great.
Like, okay, there's gonna be an opening sequence. I can go and get up for that. There's gonna be some credits. I'm
Exactly,
good.
it's fine. Yeah, it was a great film. Zach in particular, I'd really, really recommend it. It's fantastic. And then I watched another film on Mubi, which is called Time to Love, which is a Turkish film from the 60s that was lost for a long time, and Mubi themselves did the restoration. The restoration's really good. The film itself is fine. It's like a love triangle, but has a really weird premise where basically this guy is doing work in this rich lady's house and he falls in love with her picture. And she comes home and she's like really like not put off. She's like, she thinks, oh, that's really sweet. Maybe we can get together. And the guy's like, no, you'll never be as good as your picture. The picture will never disappoint or hurt me or whatever. So she like has to try and convince this guy that he should be actually with her rather than just being enamored with her picture. So it's a weird setup. Has again some really great cinematography. It reminds me a lot of like an Antonioni film, like L'Avventura or L'Eclisse. It's really interestingly shot. Um, but a weird premise. And some stuff is not great in it. I'm not gonna lie. It's an interesting film. I wouldn't sit here and like recommend it to either of you guys or anything. Maybe more so Chris. Um, but it was an interesting film. And then from there, I watched one, two, three, four, five. Sorry, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven Alfred Hitchcock movies on the go. Um, so I'll just quickly run through each of those. These are all kind of more deeper cuts. I'm not purposely trying to finish my Alfred Hitchcock run, but I'm getting up there now. Let me just double check how many I've seen.
Yeah, I was about to ask that if you
Um,
know.
1, 2,
Um,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 now. I'm on 33, and I think there's about 52 of his films that are like actually available to watch, that haven't been completely lost or butchered. And I am now getting to the point where some of the cuts are really rough. Um, so we'll see. but I'll just quickly just run through them because they're kind of deeper cuts, a lot not ones that a lot of people will have kind of seen or kind of know much about. So the first one I watched was Marnie, which is Tippi Hedren and Sean Connery. Pretty dark film. Especially for 60s Hitchcock, he did some stuff in this movie that's pretty dark. Sean Connery's character is an absolute bastard. Um, so and Tippi Hedren's performance is phenomenal. So that's Marnie. I Confess, that was okay. It's one of the pretty much most of the next few films I talk about all of the same plot. It's that typical Hitchcock plot where an innocent guy is framed for something he didn't commit and he has to prove he's didn't do it. So I Confess is the first one of those. It's a kind of an interesting setup. Montgomery Clift plays a priest, and a guy confesses to murder, but then Montgomery Clift's priest actually gets implicated in the murder, but because he has that thing where like he can't say what happened in confession or whatever, he can't actually clear his name. He's all just telling him, "Look, I didn't do it. I can't tell you why, but I didn't do it, whatever." So he has to try and like prove he didn't do it while also not breaking his oath or whatever for confessional. Um, Film itself is only okay, but it's an interesting premise. Um, the next film, which is a similar premise but is much much better, is called The Wrong Man. Have you guys ever heard of The Wrong Man?
No.
It stars Henry Fonda. Like this was like not on my radar at all, and
No, not at
it's
all.
phenomenal. Came out in 1956. It's the only Hitchcock film based on a true story about this just normal dude, just a musician who's played by Henry Fonda, and he gets wrongly fingered for a robbery, and again he has to kind of prove he didn't do it. But it's rather than just being like a caper, high stakes hijinks and whatever, it's like really grounded. It's shot in this really realist way. It like deals a lot with the fallout of like how this affects people when
Mm.
they're wrongly accused. Like his wife has like a mental breakdown and all this kind of stuff. It's a really great film. I was just really shocked by how good it was.
Do you
And
do you have any theories as to why it's not more well known? Because that sounds like something that would be
if
extremely well
anything,
spoken of.
I think it's just probably because it came out in the 50s when Hitchcock was just doing his, color, high stakes, hijinks style, like North by Northwest, Rear Window,
Mm-hmm.
Vertigo to a degree. It was coming out during that time where he was just known for being the master of suspense.
Mm-hmm.
So having this really serious black and white film that was
Mm-hmm.
telling a real story, shot in a very realist, like there's a lot of shots in this film that are like something out of a Robert Bresson film, you
Wow.
know? It's a really serious film. So I think
Just
that's probably maybe why, a lot of people don't talk about it more, just because it's from this period where pretty much everything he was making was fun and colorful and had a lightness to it. Whereas this is very kind of dark and serious. So I can only assume that's why. But it's very good. I'd highly recommend it. Um, Another one, which is the same plot, which as far as I can tell is the first time he did this plot that he does, which is called Young and Innocent from 1937. This one's on the Criterion Channel, so the cut is pretty good in it. Again, about a guy who wrongly framed for murder, goes on the run, has to try and clear his name. This was actually really light. It's pretty humorous. This one's kind of the antithesis, really, of The Wrong Man. It's not very serious at all, despite it being about a guy who's accused of murder. Uh, and then I thought Marnie was as dark as Hitchcock could go, but fucking hell, in 1972 he made a film called Frenzy, which blew me away because of how dark it was. It's about this guy in London who's like murdering and raping women, and again, a guy gets accused of doing it, and he has to try and clear his name. So it's the same plot again. But like this one's like really dark, and it's like I think it's the only Hitchcock film to ever get an R rating from what I read. Because it has boobs, it has bush, it has rape, it has murder. It's like as dark as anything I've seen Hitchcock ever do. And I think it was with you, Zach, I made this joke that like like if Hitchcock had lived in the 1980s, he would have made some depraved shit if this is
Yeah.
what he was doing in the 70s. Um But
I feel like De Palma saw it as a young man, though. He was like, I can fix it.
oh
I
man,
can.
it's actually it's crazy because it is very much like it feels like a De Palma film more than a Hitchcock film because of those, that kind of nudity and sort of big violence and stuff like that. It actually does feel more like a De Palma film, which is really ironic to say. It does
Do you
also
think?
have a kind of a giallo feel to it as well, which is funny.
Ah,
Um,
yeah,
so
you
yeah,
read my mind. That was my question. Do you think he saw Jalo movies or Jolly movies?
yeah, like
Way as
we're
well.
talking. It's 1972, so we're a couple of years after Crystal Plumage
Huh?
at this stage. So I would say it's definitely Giallo inspired.
Oh, cool.
Kind of like a mix of like Giallo and as it's set in London, so you could almost say maybe a little bit of inspiration from shit. What's the Powell movie that came out the same year as Psycho?
You're talking about the one where they're all the nuns and like
No,
the
no, no, the serial killer
oh
one.
oh no, of course
What the
what's
fuck is
it
it called?
the same one that was like Robin Williams 1 hour photo kind of thing. The
Well, you're talking about Peeping Tom.
Peeping Tom.
Yes, Peeping
Oh, okay.
Tom. Thank God. It's kind of like a mix between Peeping Tom and a Giallo movie. So I'd recommend Frenzy, especially to you guys. I think both of you guys would dig Frenzy. It's a fun, depraved time. And then last two, just really quickly, I saw The Lodger, The Story of the London Fog, the silent film that everybody loves. It's a good movie. And then I saw Secret Agent, which this is where I was mentioning earlier, the cuts I'm starting to watch are rough. I think this was like 360p or something. It doesn't have a HD remaster. Um, I couldn't even rate it on Letterboxd because it was so hard for me to even follow what was happening. The basics of the plot and stuff were fine, but like there was some scenes where it was just so hard to see what was going on because it was like a dark scene. So I couldn't even really rate it to be honest. But yeah, Secret Agent. Hopefully it gets a remaster at some point. Because it does seem like an interesting film. And Peter Lorre's in it, who's always great. Yeah, that's me up to date. I haven't watched anything in a few days because of a combination of Oblivion remastered coming out and the NFL draft, which we won't talk about because we don't want to be here all day.
Zach, what are you up to this year?
Oh, let's see. I'm gonna keep this update going. I'm at 203 movies for the year now, so not too shabby. This has actually been kind of a smaller month for me. I'm at 32 for April. So let me see. What would be I actually want to talk about? I watched a movie called The First King on Tubi, of course, but it's about the story of Remus and Romulus. Like it's almost in like apocalypto style where everybody's speaking like archaic Latin in it.
Oh,
And the initial building of that really good movie. I was very impressed that the action sequences. You go to look it up later and you realize that one of their biggest influences was Apocalypto, and that make apparently it ended up having a TV show afterwards, revolving having the same people who played the brothers in it. It's also on Tubi, but I have not watched it because I'm bad at TV shows. But the movie was good. I watched this like Adam, you would love this. I found a like 50-minute slasher film called Lake Nowhere that's filmed like an SOV film in a lot of ways. I think they may have actually used SOV equipment or at least like some low quality film, but it's basically a Friday the 13th film if you take out all the character bullshit in it and just get to the slashery stuff. So that was really good and it was a really fun time. Let's see. We went to go to the theaters feature where we saw The Amateur with Rami Malek. This is like the first thing he's done since, I guess, in Rhapsody. Like, well, at least the first like thing where he plays like a main character. More weight in this movie than a normal like dad type film would have in it. We saw Warfare, and Warfare was excellent. It's Alex Garland essentially teaming up with a guy who was in Iraq in 2006 and directing an event that happened to the other guy, Ray. Let's see if I can find his name real quick. Mendoza is his last name. Ray Mendoza. And essentially, the whole film takes place in a small little area spying on some people they Taliban, and everything goes to shit in this one building, and they're just trying to do everything they can to get like 10 feet out the door so they can get to the tanks. And well, for obvious reasons, they keep getting shot at. A bunch of their guys are like horribly, like their legs are blown up. AED when they go outside time. Really intense movie. It is loud as fuck. There's they go through and they do it twice. The IED is really loud, but honestly, the part that might have been louder when we went to go see it in IMAX or not IMAX, RPX, I should say. So halfway premium. There's where they get basically American fighter jets to go through like the streets and just basically sonic boom it through it just to like give them time to like really good a chamber piece sort of thing. A lot of technical stuff going through. So everything they're not going to explain to you anything of what they're saying. You kind of got the context clues because obviously the writer, one of the writers and one of the directors is someone who was actually in the Iraq War, actually there when this happened. So that was really good. Let's see. We watched Drop. Drop was pretty good. It was fun. I don't have a lot about it, but Christopher Landon, I like him. I like his Happy Death Day movies, so I was happy to see him do this, especially since he's not going to be doing Scream 7. From there, we went to go see Sinners. I saw that twice. Fantastic movie. Adam, I weirdly recommend that to you quite a bit. So I think of the two of you, I would recommend it to you the most. I do think Chris, if you get a chance, but I would like to get Adam's perspective on it for one specific reason. And then we featured that with Prejudice, the 20th anniversary of that came out. I was the only dude in that. Oh, wait, no, I take that back. Me and another guy were the only bit of testosterone in that entire theater. But that's fine because Pride and Prejudice is. I will rewatch that anytime. Let's see from there for Easter, and I guess for R.I.P. Pope Francis, Assassin AD. Easter for me. They rewatched Immaculate. I liked it better this time. Watched The Faculty for the first time. I never watched it. It was one of the things that influenced Sinners, apparently. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's time I finally see it. Great movie. We went to go see Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith in theaters a couple days ago. A great crowd. Honestly, you get a better crowd with a lot of the like re-releases of different things. So that was a lot of fun. And I've just watched Mission Impossible 3. So it is more or less decent stuff.
I have questions.
Okay, go for it.
Really, two main questions because the overall it sounds like you had a fun month of movie watching. I've with Sinners specifically. So I've heard people excited that Quayle.
Why would they be excited for her? She's not in it.
Who's the recent star?
Haley
Female?
Steinfeld's in it.
Oh, Haley Steinfeld. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I was getting real confused.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm very bad at modern female and male actually. So, okay, Haley Steinfeld is in it. But it's not the kind of movie where, in my understanding of it from the outside, is this not the kind of movie where you get a female lead being in it from like I like to see her naked in a movie perspective, right? Like kind of a darker movie, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's not even naked in the movie, which would be weird because the first thing I saw Haley Steinfeld in was as a child in True Grit, so that would be awkward.
That was exactly my point because somebody was getting excited that she was in it, but maybe I it the wrong way. Maybe they were just excited as her. But
yeah, I mean, she's a good actress. I mean, she is, yeah.
Totally. But the way that it was phrased initially, I thought maybe it was because of different reasons. And I was just going to say, like, I have no interest in seeing her naked ever in my life because I'll only ever see her as like a child. But that makes me feel better about it. I'm glad I just took it the wrong way.
Yeah, I don't think there's, I mean, there's sexual references if we're going to do MPA kind of thing. There's sexual references, but I don't think there's actually any nudity in the movie.
Okay, good. I'm glad I took it the wrong
Yeah.
Then the second was about the Rome thing. So I'm always interested if someone's going to try to be historical on the Rome like brothers.
Mhm.
What like did they play into some of the elements or some of the storytelling, or was it should they try to be more like fact based?
I would say more the latter. I mean, it's
Okay,
not like
interesting.
there's going to be anything supernatural in it. Of course, we talk about the story of Romulus and Remus. I mean, it's all myth. I mean, we don't see them like feeding off like a wolf or anything like that.
Exactly, yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's playing it more like, okay, assuming these people existed, which was we know that it's probably at least some form of them
Hmm,
existed.
hmm, hmm.
Um, this is probably closer to how it went.
Okay.
So there's still references. There's a reason like the wolf story comes about, but it's not like a direct, okay, we're feeding off a wolf side of thing. We're kind of get into that in a different way.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And that you saw that one on Tubi?
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, the TV show's on there too. I haven't watched it, so I can't go for the quality. The same guy who the movie made the TV show, and it lasted for 2 seasons. I don't know if it canceled, but I thought it was interesting because me and my girlfriend were just kind of looking through like the historical stuff on Tubi, and I was like, oh, there's like 10 Ramus and Romulus movie, but this one really had high ratings. Sure, why not?
Interesting. Well, so far we've covered movie and Tubi, so I'm gonna disappoint on the movie front here.
Okay, go for it. Let's hear what you got.
Um, I feel like I am gonna sound like a broken record. Vinegar Syndrome is so good at finding movies that fit firmly into the like, what the fuck am I watching category? Um, and I found another one from them called The Nesting, aka Phobia, aka Massacre Mansion. Um, it's like it's a sort of a possession movie, sort of a haunted house movie. Um, but like it's made by a guy that I don't think really understands the genre. So it has like a 12-minute Looney Tune style car chase with like sound effects in the middle of it. And like it's just it's so weird. I loved it. I was just watching it like, man, this I love like a guy named Armin Weston who had mostly made porn, but this was like a mainstream, you know, this was his push into like non-porn, non-adult movie making. Um, yeah, he's not great. But like the movie's infinitely entertaining because you never know what's coming. It's just like um yeah, it was super weird and very much my thing. Um, a few days before that, I saw a ventriloquist horror movie called Devil Doll from 1964. Super weird movie. It's like a imagine Chucky, but like it's a ventriloquist doll, and then you kind of as the movie plays along, how this doll has like a spirit and a mind of its own, and why it happens, and then there's some shenanigans with the spell that was placed on this doll. It's a little bit of a twist. It's like this creepy vibe to it all the time because it um you just can't quite figure out why the doll is moving and like trying its own. It's actually kind of effective. I didn't I don't want to call it a proto Chucky, I guess, but I guess in a way it kind of is. Um, Definitely made by somebody that just thought that ventriloquism was creepy, which I'm not going to argue with it. I there's some people that do it more for comedy, but outside of that, it can be creepy. I kind of get it. um, so I don't know if do you remember me talking this movie called Wild Boys a few months, director called Bertrand Mandico, that I'm
Yeah,
always trying to hype up. Yeah.
yeah, I remember that.
So there's a his new movie that came out in 2023. Got to it's called She Is Conan. Um, I
Oh man, I've almost watched that like 4 times. Yeah, I wanted to see it.
okay. I don't. I would be fascinated. I might bring it into the podcast one day, like if in like a Bertrand, just to see y'all's reaction to him as a director. Because she interesting. It goes back and forth between like a modern day. I don't know what era it's supposed to be in, maybe like the 50s, 60s, and then like the kind of the typical period piece that you'd expect to see like a Conan movie in. And it goes back and forth between basically like different lesbian lovers and strong like female warriors, and like betrayal, and it has all these themes in it. But like the actual main actor, female actor who plays Conan, she's awesome, and she's like very brutal and like dark, and um, she's meant to be basically kind of like bred from birth to be this killer, much in this is Conan, but the whole thing is done just extremely artistically, like some combination of Passion of Joan of Arc is like the close-ups and sort of like the way they shoot the actual scene, framing and stuff. But then the set design is just totally extravagant, and the black and white is really rich, deep black and white, and then there's also color scenes in it, back and forth. It's just a really fascinating movie. I definitely want to see it again. Um, but yeah, I loved it. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I've finally seen a 2025 movie. I saw a movie. Um, and have either one of y'all seen that yet?
No, I weirdly want to, but I have not seen it.
Um, Man, I'm just nostalgic for like uh, Napoleon Dynamite because that
Me
was a
too.
big part of my child. Yeah, it feels very similar to Napoleon Dynamite. It's very fun. Uh, Made by the same director, and it just he kind of goes to that humor in a really good way. I think the movie's great as far as like a kids film.
And that's the one thing I've kind of, I guess, where I'm around my kids a lot, work with them. One thing I'm hearing is like how hard that movie's gotten memed, and like I don't blame them. I mean, things like in the previews to meme about it, but I also think there's like this weird thing where people trying to grade it as like a normal movie when it's and definitely looks like it's intended to be made for kids.
Oh yeah,
The thing people are making fun of is, yeah, it's this movie. I think that's what it is.
no, for sure. They they don't hide it at all. Right? At that sort of 80s, like early 90s, kids getting into big adventures kind of feel to it, which is fun. And it's got the Napoleon Dynamite humor to it. And I don't think Jason Momoa is funny at all, but he nails it here. Like he's perfect for this. He plays basically the Uncle Rico role, and he does a great job at it. Um,
Does he throw a football over the mountains?
he does throw things far, so kind of see.
Okay,
You
fair, fair.
could say that Jared has a thing with with throwing. Seen the first three Gamera movies. They're very fun. I love like the difference Godzilla and Gamera is that like I think with I mean there's a differences, but like I think the main difference for me is that they have so much building out these batshit for these movies. Like the first movie is just fighting Gamera, but then the second one is this guy that it's like a lizard, and he shoots a rainbow out of his back that is like an impenetrable laser that just destroys whatever it touches. So it's it's this weird combination of like a deadly rainbow. Um, and then he shoots ice out of his mouth. And then the second one is like a flying monster, and he shoots lasers out of his mouth that are impenetrable, and then is meant to be like a vampire character, so it likes to suck blood. That plays into the movie somehow. And the original working title for the third one was Gamera versus the Vampire, which when you see the movie, it makes no damn sense why they would do that. Um, but yeah, it's fun, man. These Gamera movies are fun. We'll talk about the Mission Impossible movies, but then the two that I have to call out. So y'all know I'm a big fan of samurai swords going into bodies and blood spraying and covering the screen, like that arterial spray kind of fighting. Um, and I may have found the king of those movies. So there's a there's a movie from Mondo Macabro, well, that Mondo Macabro put out from Taro Ishii called Code of the Forgotten Eight. It's also called Bohachi Bushido. It's fantastic. It's great. Like there's it's a story where I mean the plot is it's not I'm not I guess we won't get into it just for the sake of time, but it's just blood constantly and nudity probably in like 85% of the movie because it's about a harem and this guy that goes and tries to clean up a harem that's become a den of ill repute. Um, yeah, it's so good and fun from that kind of sword play perspective. Man, I guess I've seen a lot this month. The last thing I'll talk about is The People's Joker, which is just I don't know. It might be one of my favorite superhero movies. It's so fun, very creative, very much a story of like the underdog and like the forgotten and the weird. It's great. I loved it. I loved every second of it. It's done mixed media style, so there's like a collage style images on screen a lot. There's some animation. There's some just regular, like regular filmmaking, live action film. It's really really fun, and it's altered in a it because it's sort of the definition of an independent production, and they nail it. I think it's wonderful. I could keep going, but that's a good place to stop. I think it's been a fun month of movie watching.
Sounds like we all had a busy month.
Yeah,
Huh.
and that's the podcast.
Yeah, we don't even have to worry about Mission Impossible. We
We're
just
40
gave
minutes
everyone
in.
like 100 recommendations.
Exactly.
I really fear for that one person who keeps a watch list based on things we talked about, and they're putting
Oof.
this.
Do you
they're
guys
putting
remember
this
that
for-
Chris wanted to be that person when we first started this years ago?
Oh yeah, you're gonna start a list, weren't you, Chris? Of every
No,
film.
that's there. They're on Letterbox. It's like 400 movies long, and I just eventually gave up because I was
Because
like,
we were on episode 4.
exactly.
An insane concept.
Mission Impossible?
Okay, Mission Impossible. So, obviously, if you tuned in to the end of our last episode, Chris has chosen, well, not Chris has chosen per se, but Chris gave us the idea to kind of do these films as part of our, what I guess will now kind of become a recurring thing, kind of around kind of late spring into the summer, covering a major franchise.
Yeah.
Obviously, last summer, if you were around then, we did a Fast and Furious. This one I think will be a much more enjoyable experience for all. As I kind of mentioned when we talked about these films at the end of the last episode, I'm a huge fan of this series. I'm gonna have a lot of fun revisiting all of these movies, especially two of the ones that we're gonna talk about today. I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
So it's been fun kind of revisiting these. I suppose we'll get started kind of at, not really at the beginning, I guess. Chris, you can tell us a little bit about the TV series. I didn't watch any of it, and if I remember correctly, I don't think Zach even knew it existed. So you can maybe tell us a little bit about the TV series. But if we get started with the first film, came out in 1996, directed by Brian De Palma, which obviously we only just recently watched a Brian De Palma film. So it's good to jump into another one. For those who haven't seen the first Mission Impossible movie, the synopsis from Letterboxd is when Ethan Hunt, the leader of a crack espionage team whose perilous operation has gone array, I can never pronounce that word. Awry
Right.
has gone awry with no explanation, discovers that a mole has penetrated the CIA. He's surprised to learn that he's the prime suspect. To clear his name, Hunt now must ferret out of the real double agent in the process, even score. That is written by somebody who has very little grasp of English grammar. Basically, this is an Alfred Hitchcock movie. A guy gets gets accused of something he didn't do. He has to clear his name. There we go. This is so much easier. It's Brian De Palma, so it's an Alfred Hitchcock movie. So Ethan Hunt gets accused of something he didn't do. He has to try and clear his name, and that's it. There we go. That would have been the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah.
Who wants to jump in then? Because obviously I've seen this film a bunch of times. Zach, I know you've seen this film before
Mhm.
a while ago. Chris, is this your first time in Mission Impossible? I don't remember where you stood with these films.
I had seen this movie before, but maybe just for
Okay.
a quick background. So there's a few differences that are, I think, like in the TV show, they did have IMF, the Impossible Missions Force. The main characters were different. So they, instead of Ethan Hunt, they had these characters called Briggs and Phelps that kind of like led the team. And I guess it was similar to Cruise and Ving Rhames. That sort of,
Well, Phelps is the character that John Voight plays.
oh, okay. So I guess they're doing it like he's kind of coming out of it now. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But maybe that's a nod to the TV show then. Um, but yeah, I mean, this was a long running TV show. It had 7 seasons. It was very popular. That Lalo Schifrin music, you know, that with that candle burning and then that like that's been around since 1966. Um,
So Danny Elfman is just a hack. Okay, just wanted to confirm.
Always was.
Yeah.
paying homage. This movie is fairly beloved. It's 45/35 on They Shoot Pictures.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that anyone's crazy about it. This is also, I believe, the most highly ranked entry in the franchise.
I
What
thought
a
you were telling me it's the
disgrace.
most highly rated De Palma film. I was like, Jesus.
No, 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 I doubt that. That would be a talking point for sure. Um, so yeah, I mean, people really dug this. Tom Cruise. I think we were talking about this a little bit behind the scenes, or I can't remember if I was talking to somebody else about this. I think with y'all, but weird dude, but man, can he carry a movie? Like he just has a star presence, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a perfect role for him. So in a lot of ways, I think, and that's proven over the next 30 years or whatever. But um, yeah, I think this movie for me is like something that I enjoy, and I'd be curious to hear y'all gush about it because you're probably going to gush about it more than me. But I don't hate it. It's a fun, easy watch. It's okay. What did y'all think about the first Mission Impossible?
I can go real quick. So, this was kind of weird going into even when the first time I did because all I knew about Mission Impossible was like all the trailers of crazy ass stunts I'd seen, and Tom Cruise like learning to hold his breath for like 82 hours or something, and then doing something else. Who knows? I don't know. It's Tom Cruise. Um, so I was actually kind of surprised when I get into the first one, and it's honestly kind of what's the word to use? Quaint.
Yeah.
Like it is a lot more like there isn't like a lot of crazy action or anything in it. Honestly, it's got a lot of Adam, you might be right about saying like Hitchcockian in that sense. Like it's a lot of talking, it's a lot of like small set pieces and things like that. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was I know it's going to change a lot as we go through, and I'm sure for the better. But I dug this quite a bit, and it was kind of nice to see it as kind of a TV show feel to it because it is obviously now that I know homaging a TV show in a lot of ways.
Yeah, this film's definitely kind of lower. I don't want to say necessarily low stakes, but it's definitely more low key than what the series becomes. Like even like these first three films are very different to like the last three films. Just in terms of their scope and stuff like that. There's a lot of globe trotting in this series, as you guys are going to find out throughout this kind of next couple of episodes. But the first Mission Impossible movie, in fact, honestly, all of the ones that we're going to talk about today, none of these would be my favorite. None of these would be in my top three. I'm definitely more of a new age Mission Impossible stan. But I think in terms of overall quality, this is probably the best one of the three we're going to talk about today. It's obviously it's well made. It's Brian De Palma. He knows what he's doing. He's a great director. Um, The Hitchcock connection, by the way, and I was trying to think when I was watching the movie, I was like, okay, I know there's going to be something Hitchcocky here. I need to try and figure out what the Hitchcock connection is. I actually didn't do that connection literally until I said it. It just came to my brain like 2 minutes ago that it's basically a Hitchcock movie with it being about a guy on the run having to clear his name. Because that actually becomes a very common plot point with Mission Impossible movies that Ethan Hunt always has to go off script and go on the run. Um, you'll find it's very common. That's I didn't actually put the Hitchcock
For
connection
some
there
reason,
until I said
IMF
it.
can't figure out that these missions are impossible unless you go rogue.
It's I know it's you'd think they would have figured it out by now.
There's so much
The
damn corruption in the force, though. That's the problem.
That's the thing. That is it. There's always moles everywhere. The only Hitchcock connection I could make when I was actually watching it was that it shockingly kills off cast members relatively early. So like a Psycho style thing where they killed off Janet Leigh. That's the only thing I was watching. Is going, they killed off most of this cast pretty early, and these are some big names they've just killed off. Maybe that's the
I couldn't
Hitchcock
believe Martin
connection.
Sheen's son was dead. I was very upset about that when I first watched it. I was like, damn. I was
His
excited
name's
for him to be in the
Emilio
movie.
Estevez. Put some respect on the damn man's name.
You know it's a foreign name, and I wasn't going to be able to say it, so let me
Okay.
have this. I would have actually been able to say that. I couldn't think of his first name.
Fair enough. Yeah, like I think like a lot of there's a lot of stuff in this film that has blueprints of what's to come. I think it's a really good entry point into the series, not because it's just the first one, just because it has a lot of the tropes and stuff that you come to expect. But it is definitely a lot more low key compared to some later ones. It's kind of funny with the three that we're going to talk about today. I think they're all very different stylistically. Um, there's because we have three different kind of well, I don't know if we're going to call J.J. Abrams an auteur per se, but
Yeah, sure, why
we'll
not?
say, but I do think it is stylistically distinct. So I will say three different auteurs kind of having a crack at this series means that we're going to have three very different styles of film. There's going to be more variation here than there will be in later ones, especially when Christopher McQuarrie takes over and obviously directs several on the go. Um, but yeah, first Mission Impossible movie, I like it. I think it's a good entry point into the series, which I know sounds redundant because it's the first one, but with a lot of these, they're very self-contained anyway. Like this definitely wasn't the first Mission Impossible movie I saw. The first Mission Impossible movie I saw was Ghost Protocol, um, when that came out in theaters. I think I was like 15 or something at the time when that came out, or 16 or something, and I just saw it with my friends because we used to just go and see any old crap that was out, just to kill some time. Um, so this definitely wasn't the first Mission Impossible movie I saw. But I do think it is a good introduction to the series. Um, it's a good introduction to Ethan Hunt as a character, and kind of a lot of the things he does in this film really does continue. It's a very consistent character. Um, you do see a lot of, even like in the most recent films, um, he is very consistently written. I guess the best way I can put it.
So there's one thing I want to call it up top. Have y'all ever seen a movie by the guy that I'm so tempted to call Jules Dassin, even though, excuse me, I think he just goes by Jules
Jean
Dassin.
Reno. Oh, sorry, no, you're thinking of Jules Dassin. Yeah, the
Yeah,
American that we all think is French. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Uh,
we've all seen The Naked City. So
exactly. Have y'all ever seen a movie he made called Top Copy?
no.
You know
Okay,
I haven't.
so listen to this plot really quickly. It's just three sentences, okay? Just listen to this. Elizabeth Lip visits Istanbul, Turkey, where she sees a traveling fair featuring replicas of treasures from the Topkapi Palace. Okay, here's where I think it gets really interesting. Next, she cases the palace, fascinated by the emerald encrusted dagger. Leaving Turkey, she recruits her ex lover, master criminal Walter Harper, to plan the theft. They engage Cedric Page, master of all things mechanical, Julio, the human fly, an acrobat, and the burly Hans, who provides the muscle needed for the job. So I was watching this. I was like, wait a minute, this really feels like Top Copy. And then I went, and he specifically calls out that he wanted to base the story off of Top Copy.
Oh,
So he's a huge fan of this movie, I guess. But it's 100% still a Mission Impossible movie, just like the plot, I guess.
Oh, that is interesting. Okay.
Um,
I assumed that Brian De Palma had never seen any other filmmaker apart from Hitchcock. So
maybe he heard Hitchcock reference Jules Dassin once.
No, he was watching it on TMC. He's watching a Hitchcock movie, and that just kind of stayed on while he was washing
There you go.
dishes. And he's like,
There you go.
"Oh, okay, that's cool."
it's pretty dope.
Yeah, I think that y'all are calling out a lot of exactly my exact same reaction to it, which makes me feel justified. I'm gonna say though, I'm not like super, I'm not 10 out of 10 on any of the movies we're gonna talk about today, but I am a sucker for bringing a team together to pull off a heist. Like I'm always gonna be there for those type of movies. Um, there's just something about them that like it kind of makes me feel like I'm watching what is that? There's another guy, the guy that made Rafifi.
That's Jules
Um,
Dassin as well.
oh, there we go. Oh, shit, there you
It's
go.
all we're all connected.
Yeah. There's just something about that style that I really love, and I'm always going to be kind of here for it. So it's like another one of these like chicken soup kind of formulas for me. So this one did fall into that. I can watch these movies on loop, but I don't get bored by them.
You'll enjoy some of the later ones then. They're all pretty much about getting the team together and they all have their own functions. Obviously, we can see as you guys have seen so far, Ving Rhames has been, consistent with these first three. I don't think he's in Ghost Protocol, but then he's in all the rest of them again. And obviously more characters get introduced that we can kind of talk about later on and stuff that become consistent players in the series. Um, so that'll be a consistent experience for you, I think. I don't think apart from that, I'm just looking at the cast here. Um, yeah, obviously
Well,
Ving
we
Rhames, as
need
I said, carries over. The only other actor that's in this that is in a later film is Henry Cerny, but he doesn't show up again until the most recent one.
Oh, that's a random one. Okay.
Yeah, the IMF director. You'll learn in this series you've probably seen so far pretty much every film has a different IMF director.
Right.
They always end up with somebody else in there. Henry Cerny is the IMF director though in the most recent one. But yeah, every film has like a new random guy playing the IMF director. It is always
And they
like a big
just can't
actor.
figure out why this isn't working out. Like when they keep changing managements.
I know it's crazy. This is the problem really, when there's so much turnover in upper management, that just trickles down.
Is it
I
just like
know,
one of those things where every movie they want to like have that director who's like, Ethan, you can't do this, and Ethan's gonna be like, yes, I am,
pretty
because none of
much.
them can trust that he's done this like 8 times by now.
Exactly. They haven't read his file. There's like, who the fuck is this Ethan Hunt guy and why has he gone rogue? Um, Surely there should have been an orientation somewhere that Ethan Hunt will go rogue at one point. But apparently not. No. Um, yeah, like, I don't know if there's a ton more to say really about this. I think the cast is largely good. One thing about if we can talk about spoilers for a second, I guess I just want to call out one thing with the kind of twist, I guess, that I would never have really considered much of a twist without knowing about the TV series now, because I didn't watch any of the episodes, but I kind of just read about it. Are we okay to do spoilers for a second?
I think
Yeah,
we have
sure.
to for these three movies. A
Yeah.
little bit.
Now I know he's John Voight, so I should have expected him to be the villain anyway, but like John Voight being the villain, when I kind of watched this not knowing anything about the TV series, I was like, okay, yeah, that's an okay twist, that's fine. But now knowing that he was playing the character who was basically the hero of the TV series,
True, true, true.
like I bet this would have been a really great twist if you were like a fan of the TV series,
I
and
mean, the
then you
TV
went to go
series
see
people are just getting
this.
fucking jerked around, like, oh my God, he's dead, and then, oh my God, he's evil.
Yeah, exactly. But like I would have I would love to talk to somebody who would have been a fan of the series and then watched the film just to kind of hear their reaction to them, whether it would have been a cool twist or whether they're like those assholes. Why are they making my favorite character a bad guy? I'd be interested to get that perspective or to hear from somebody who has kind of had that perspective. Because when you know now about the TV series, it is a better twist, I think, than just off the bat. Because you know, maybe it's just because he's John Voight and he's an evil sack of shit anyway. But I just expected him to be the bad guy.
They They do fake deaths in this series, probably
Yeah,
is
they do.
probably better than any series outside of maybe Bond, but they're they do a really good job with those fake deaths throughout the series, at least the first three.
Yeah, I feel like in
Um,
every movie going forward, they're gonna need to like pull to make sure there's like no mask, like pull at their neck or something every time now.
I'm glad you mentioned the mask stuff because one thing I love about the Mission Impossible movies is the reason why I love them so much. And I love the tone of that. They have these like ridiculous, like even the IMF Impossible Missions Force, so goofy, so cheesy, and they have all these ridiculous gadgets like the masks and stuff like that. But everyone just like plays it straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love that tonal balance where like they just talk about this stuff like it's like normal. Like
Right.
it's
Well,
not the most ridiculous thing in the whole world. It's not played for jokes or laughs or anything. Everyone just kind of treats it like a normal thing. It just has that really great tonal balance, and that stays consistent through this whole series. There's things that happen in these movies where you're like, this is just ridiculous. Like the stunts that Tom Cruise does later on in particular. You're like, this is ridiculous, but it's never seems like ridiculous to the point where it's like this is stupid. If you get what I mean, it's just like it's ridiculous in a crazy way rather than like the antithesis of that will be the stuff that we saw in some of the later Fast and Furious movies where you're like, this is stupid. It never hits that for me anyway. It never hits that level. It's always like this is crazy and this is fun, but never really hits the point of this is stupid. And that's why I think it's a big important balance that these films get. I think.
yeah, I mean, I think that really just comes down to like when you talk about like Fast and Furious, you have somebody like Tyrese Gibson, who is probably my favorite character in Fast and Furious, but he's noting how ridiculous it is.
Mhm.
And that is just putting in your mind. It's like that whole thing where something like this, it's like, yeah, I believe it. Whatever. That's fine. Let's just go with it.
Yeah. Don't worry about you put on a mask, it suddenly also alters your height and weight and body shape. Nobody questions that. Like nobody questions that Tom Cruise is now suddenly the same shape as Philip Seymour Hoffman. Just don't worry about it. It's
I would
fine.
love to hear in the casting. I would love to like. I always wonder if like I know we're gonna get to that soon, but it's like, do you consciously like make sure it's like the opposite type of like body style as like Ethan Hunt, or do you go like, or was casting just like fuck, we can't say no to Philip Seymour Hoffman?
See, this is why they made a mistake by not casting Sydney Sweeney in any of these movies, just to see Tom Cruise try and pretend to be her. Um,
Which have you guys
for
seen the new Naked Gun trailer? I assume you have for the remake.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
fun. That gag's great. I did see
it is
that's
very
what
good.
I was gonna bring up. That like a lot of things you talk about, I was like, I've seen that parodied.
Yeah,
And it's almost like it could be like you're right, it could almost be a parody. But they do play it straight.
because they play it straight and it just works. It just worked for me anyway. It just worked. Like there might be some stuff that happens in the newer films. You guys are kind of be like, oh, okay, this is just stupid now. But for me, it always works. I always have fun
Well,
during these.
yeah, I don't want to jump around too much, but that there actually I think that actually led to a little bit of a tonal problem in the third movie for me, but we'll get to that in just a second. But these were always meant to be sort of campy fun, right? Like that's you went to the TV show for like a formula and sort of campy fun, right? And I think that that's one thing I do like about this movie a lot is that it was clearly made by people that like really love the TV show. And I think they nailed the tone of it perfectly. Because you said the stakes were never too high. I think that's the perfect description for that. Like you know that they're gonna win. Um, and it's like soothing in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
like
not
in
like the
terms
world's
of
gonna end.
Right.
exactly like the final set piece in this film. It's the worst case scenario is that the train is going to crash and a few hundred people are going to die, as opposed to the world ending, which is the stakes that these films end up going to. Um,
Right.
so it's pretty low stakes by Mission Impossible standards.
Right.
Any final thoughts on Mission Impossible from 1996, directed by Sir Brian De Palma?
No, I think I'm good.
Nah. Let's get into John Woo.
Oh God, here we go.
So the year is 2000. Um,
All you have to do is watch the film to know that. You can just watch this film and it's 2000.
with computer genius Luther Stickle at his side and a beautiful thief on his mind, Agent Ethan Hunt races across Australia and Spain to stop a former IMF agent from unleashing a genetically engineered biological weapon called Chimera. This mission, should Hunt choose to accept it, plunges him into the center of an international crisis of terrifying magnitude. I mean, they're not wrong. That is kind of what happens. Um, Also, before we jump into this, when did Thandie Newton change the spelling of her name?
I think it's only recently. I remember
Oh,
reading about it and then I immediately forgot about it. And then GT corrected me in Discord and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot that happened.
Thandie. I wonder if that's like a, well, I won't.
I think it's like whatever. I'm not sure where in Africa her ancestry is from, but it does look like, I think it's like Tandewe. That would be my guess of the pronunciation, Tandewe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good for her for going back to her roots.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I just saw this. I was searching for Mission Impossible 2 on They Shoot Pictures, and I just saw the Mission Impossible TV show is actually on here as one of the greatest films of all time, which that's confusing.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it's 21,000 though, so it's pretty low on the list.
So one dude put it on there.
One critic was like, "Fuck y'all, I'm putting it as a movie." Mission Impossible 2 is not beloved. It technically is on the list. It is 22,992nd on the list. So would not say that it's beloved. It's right around that movie that has been spoofed 100 times called They Might Be Giants. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. This is the kind of category it keeps. Which is appropriate, I think.
So it's basically cheesy nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. Which
has its place in the world, you know.
It does have its place in the world. But man, let's start with Zach. What was your take on Mission Impossible 2?
I think Mission Impossible 2 is interesting because I think the plot is more straightforward than the first one, but somehow I understood less of what was going on. Like the movie starts with the airplane thing, and the face we get is that the first time we get the whole face and the voice modulator thing? Maybe I can't remember.
Yeah.
So we get that, and then we get Tom Cruise climbing a cliff for about 15 minutes.
Yeah,
but it's a dope scene though.
Yeah, it is a great scene. Me and my girlfriend were watching it, and I was like, I bet Tom Cruise really did that. And she looked it up and like, yep, Tom Cruise really did that. I'm like, of course he did.
You don't have to. You don't have to Google that. From now on, if you see Tom Cruise do something ridiculous, he did it.
Tom Cruise did it. And then we got into a 10-minute car chase. And I'm like, what is this movie at this point? I mean, I can't say I didn't have fun, but I just had no fucking idea. Like, I have no fucking clue why this is called Mission Impossible. Like, in all honesty, because that does not feel like the first. Like, I kind of give Wu some credit because he watched the De Palma film and said, we're not going to do any of that. None of it. It is not going to be basically not a sequel to Mission Impossible.
No, but this is true for these first three films. Like, I feel like these first three movies are all like very specific versions of like the director that makes them.
Oh yeah, but I would say 3 feels like if that came out first, like came out like De Palma's, and then years later they make Abrams, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, this feels kind of appropriate. At that point, it'd been like 10 years. But this one, I'm just like, wow, this is wild.
Are you telling me that motorcycle fights and karate on a beach don't fit into the Mission Impossible?
I will say that last 40 minutes is awesome. Like, that is why they hired Wu for that like last 40 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, that's all you're really there for, right? You're there you're at a John Woo movie to see like explosions and maybe some martial arts.
Yeah, we're not here for the plot. I barely remembered the plot. In fact, I got in my brain because I hadn't seen 2 and 3 in a long time. Definitely over 10. I mean, yeah, definitely over 10 years anyway. Last time I'd seen both of these movies. And in my brain, I had mixed up the plots of 2 and 3. So for some reason, I thought Mission Impossible 3 was about what's her name? Monaghan, whose girlfriend, wife, whatever in Mission Impossible 3.
Monica Monaghan?
No,
that
Michelle
Michelle.
Monaghan.
Michelle? There we go. I know
I
it's the
thought
name.
Michelle Monaghan. I thought the plot of Mission Impossible 3 was Michelle Monaghan had the thing in her brain that was going to blow her up, and Ethan Hunt had to stop it. But then I was watching Mission Impossible 2, and I was like, oh, Tandy Newton has the thing. They hardly did that plot twice in a row, where Ethan has to save his love interest from whatever's in her body. But then obviously that wasn't the plot of Mission Impossible 3. I just mixed them both up and kind of put them together. Um, so yeah, I agree with you. Like this, I think this film is very overly convoluted for no reason at all.
Apparently, Wu had a 3.5 hour cut of this, and I'm like, that
Jesus.
must be where the rest of the fucking plot is. Like,
Yeah.
like why is this why would that be 3.5 hours?
Yeah,
Amazing.
because this is just it is a very much all over the place. Like this is definitely the worst, in my opinion. This is the worst of the series. A lot of people will hold that opinion. So I guess it's what this film is more so about is how much cheese are you able to put up with.
Yeah, the
Like
writing
if
is brutal.
the writing's super bad.
Yeah, it's like they needed like a line that they needed to draw for the rest of the series and say we can't go lower than this. We can't like
Yeah.
it can't be more ridiculous than this. This is the line.
And it's funny because this film is obviously full of set pieces, different chases and explosions and stuff. It's full of set pieces. Um, but none of them are like particularly iconic or good.
The
Like that,
only thing that maybe like I've seen the motorcycle thing before. Like that's the closest I can think of.
but like, is it good?
No, but I remember Tom Cruise coming out on a motorcycle with flames behind him. I've seen that image.
Yeah. See, I know images from this film purely because of the music video for the Metallica song that was made for this movie.
Oh
That's
shit,
the
that is
only
that is
reason I
that.
know
Okay.
clips. I can't remember the name of the song now, but there's a Metallica song anyway, and the music video is various clips from this film.
Oh, that's
Um,
hilarious.
so that's the only reason I remember a lot of this.
I I do want to spend like 30 seconds just on John Woo before we jump into the movie because like this movie was like he was at his peak right now, right? Like he came to the States after just shattering Hong Kong box office records with the Better Tomorrow series and then The Killer. Um, and then he came to the States with Hard Boiled and then Broken Arrow, which was $50 million budget, $150 million take, which is pretty good. Hard Target was even pretty good, $20 million budget, $74 million take. And then Face Off, which is exploded, right? 80 million, $250 million take. And then he goes and makes this entry, and it made a lot of money. Like this movie made $550 million against a $120 million budget. So it was successful. Um, and this is pretty much his peak because even though Wind Talkers is a better movie, it was a little bit less successful. Paycheck is a good movie, a little bit less successful. And then he goes back to Hong Kong for the most part. So this was him at his like most Hollywood, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Um, and it's just interesting that this movie was well regarded by in terms of box office because I can't imagine going to this and recommending it to a friend back in the year 2000.
Well, I think it's more so about Tom Cruise, really. It's not nobody's going to see Mission Impossible movies for the director.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It's especially like it's Tom Cruise. That's what it is. Like the director is kind of secondary, really. And that's why Christopher McQuarrie has been, so successful in the director's chair because he just gets Tom Cruise and they just get each other. They like working with one another. They've worked together a lot. So that's why Christopher McQuarrie has been the only director to direct more than one entry in this series, and he's directed the last four, including the newest one that's coming out next month.
Which I'm kind of curious about because like as much as I'll kind of dog on this one, I'm kind of into the different feel of each one. So it'd be kind of interesting once it kind of like comes together for like have some consistency between movies. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, and like it gets it. I think for me anyway, a lot of the first few Mission Impossible movies, it's about melding together different tones. And then I think by the time they got to the first Christopher McQuarrie one, they found a good tone and it stayed consistent from there. They just found that, for me anyway, they have the winning formula of tone is in these last few, the most recent ones, which obviously we'll get there in a couple of episodes' time. The for me anyway, the newer ones kind of have a consistency that works. It's a tone balance that works for the series. Um, so I'm excited to get there because obviously these first three are almost like whiplash going from one to the other. Um, they're all so stylistically different. Like this film is so excessive. It's so excessive.
Yeah, y'all were joking around saying this was going to be my favorite one, and I was really trying to make it that way, but I couldn't get there. It's so goofy.
It's only because you're a contrarian, really. I just assumed you would be the one coming out to say this is the best, and like the
No.
first one is a piece of shit or whatever.
I know exactly why you would say it, and I was trying to meet you there.
Chris is like, somebody's got to defend this movie during the podcast.
No, it's like it's oddly safe, even though it goes into crazy directions. Like it's oddly just like it's still not in that batshit territory. It's just sort of cheesy, and I don't know. Ironically enough, the writers are like the Star Trek world would know these writers. I think they're like big names in the Star Trek universe. So there's a lot of big names behind the camera for this, but yeah, just I don't know, just somehow it didn't translate.
What I think kind of hurts the film, like honestly, I could get down with more of the goofy stuff if the whole movie was like that, but the middle of this movie is really boring.
Oh, it's so boring.
Like the first
Um,
30 minutes is pretty good, and the last 30 minutes is pretty good, like as far as having fun. And then the fucking middle happens, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
And it's
I just
ironic
don't care.
because the middle part, that's where all the espionage is.
Yeah,
So the middle part is basically like the tone of like the first Mission Impossible movie, but it just doesn't work because the plot's not that interesting. Dougray Scott as the villain, I think is only just meh. He's okay, like he's not very memorable. Um, as the villain, it's just kind of like we're just getting through because all they're doing in the middle section is just finding out things that we know as the audience, and it's just about letting all the characters know. It's just like who cares? In a way, you almost just want to get back to the explosions at that point. Um, because the middle section is all just espionage, but we, the audience, are not really learning any new information.
I do think one thing that's interesting here though versus the first one is John Woo did figure out that Tom Cruise is attractive, and they like really play into that, where I think the first one almost tries to make him nerdy at times, like with like when he puts glasses on and stuff like that. And it's this one, it's like, yes, Tom Cruise is charming and attractive. We're gonna lean into that really hard.
Let the
Yeah.
hair flow, baby.
Put him on a motorcycle.
Give him a leather jacket. John
Don't
Woo
sit
was
there and
like,
talk about floppy disks. Nobody cares.
yeah, John Woo was like, have you guys not seen Top Gun? What are we doing here? Put that man on a motorcycle and give him a leather jacket. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Mission Impossible 2, like it's definitely the worst of the series. I can understand why some people like it. Like if you're just into John Woo core, just explosions and crazy editing and
Of course.
throwing bullets around and just insane, just insanity.
Mhm.
Then I can get it. But even then, I think even John Woo purists can still say that there's so much stuff bogged down in the middle, like what Zach said. I think it's hard to really call this a good film, for me anyway.
Is it one of those ones in the series that gets like reevaluated? Like you hear about that in like these long running series where the one everyone hates is like, this is no guys, this one's good, I promise.
It definitely is. They're like this film definitely has its what's the word, supporters, I guess. Like even when our own Discord, there was one or two that chopped up that said, "No, fuck this is John Woo, baby. This shit bangs." Which I don't agree with personally. And I'm not a John Woo purist or anything because I've only ever seen Face Off except for
Oh, wow.
this. I've never seen any of his Hong Kong output.
I
just 'cause
just
they haven't been
realized we have
available.
done a
So
John Woo film before on this
we have,
podcast. Yeah, so this is the only one that didn't get a second is Abrams. Wow. Yeah, I
yeah.
just realized that.
All right, Force Awakens. We're going to be doing Star Wars next summer, I guess.
That
But
actually would be a fun one to go through. But I do want to shout out Brendan Gleeson just because it doesn't matter the movie he's in. I just love the guy.
and I'm surprised he didn't die. 'Cause he dies in everything. Like
That's
everyone
true.
says Sean Bean dies in, but like Brendan Gleeson dies in everything. Even in there's an Irish short film that you have to study for your kind of finishing exams in Irish school. Or in like school in Ireland, I mean. And it's all in Gaelic. It's called Colca Millish, which means birthday cake. And Brendan Gleeson is in it. It's a short film and it's all in Irish. And even in that he dies.
Like
You
we only
know.
have 15 minutes to kill off Brandon Gleeson. Go, 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 go.
It's not even I think it's like 10. It's not it's actually a pretty brutal film. He's blind and he is asthmatic, but he's also really fucking annoying. And he's sitting across from a girl on a train and he is just annoying the crap out of her. And she takes his inhaler and he just dies on the train. So
Jesus.
yeah, it's pretty dark. But yeah, I was surprised he didn't die. Spoiler alert, Brendan Gleeson doesn't die. And there was a moment where I thought he died, but then he was there. So
There's a
Somehow he returns.
somehow Brendan Gleeson returned.
yeah. There's there's two random tidbits about this film before we jump on to the third one. I mean, I think we're pretty close to wrapping up this one. One of them is this movie has his cousin in it, William
Yeah.
Mapother.
Yes.
Huge role as a henchman here.
And it was setting it up because we're gonna get a fuck ton of Lost people in the next one. So he was like the little taste before you get to hear me talk about Lost for pretty much the entire next movie. So
Perfect. Second one, I just thought this was the most Tom Cruise story ever. So Thandie Newton discussed her unpleasant on-set experiences with Cruise. This is straight from Wikipedia, but it just made me laugh. During the shooting of the balcony sequence, according to Newton, Cruise was heavily stressed over the expectations of the sequel being good and was upset during the shooting because she had the shittiest lines.
this is why he turned to Scientology, because fucking Mission Impossible 2 was bad. This is how it happened. The stress got to him.
It was unhelpful for her and pushed her into a place of terror and insecurity.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Have you ever heard the Matt Damon story where he talks about how Tom Cruise had a safety inspector on one of the Mission Impossible sets that told him he couldn't do a stunt? And so
No.
he goes, okay. And I guess Matt Damon tells the story in a way that he's like, he's telling the story to Matt. And he's like, okay. So I said, okay. And then I fired my safety inspector.
Sounds
He
right.
found one that would let him do the stunt. Like Tom Cruise is just an intense guy, man.
Like, I mean, we all figured that out on Oprah.
Yeah, if you didn't know it already. Anyway,
We better get on to the third one.
yeah, I have nothing else to say on this.
All right, so let's well, all right. Can I just like give the same synopsis you guys did like the first time?
No. This film is entirely different. It's not about the same
100%
thing.
different. All right. Let me I should have already had pulled up. All right, found it. Letterboxd Live. The mission begins at 5506. Retired from active duty and training recruits for the Impossible Missions Force, Agent Ethan Hunt faces the toughest foe of his career, Philip Seymour Hoffman, an internal broker of arms and information who is as cunning as he is ruthless. Philip Seymour Hoffman emerges to threaten Hunt and all that he holds dear, including the woman Hunt loves. So, where's this one ranked, Chris? Is it higher than Mission Impossible 2 at least?
It is. It's in the 13,000s. So
okay.
it's getting up there. And I the only reason I can think that this is anybody's favorite movie is because they're an Abrams stan, just in the same way that someone might be a Woo stan.
I mean, I think the movie is like fun enough. Like I had a good time. It's not like high-end action cinema, but I liked it.
No, I want to get into that here in just a second. I think it's probably Adam. I guess it's your turn to start as far as like
Yeah, like this is I hadn't seen this in a long time. I barely remembered it. As I said, what I thought was the plot of this film was actually the plot of the second film. So I remembered very little apart from Philip Seymour Hoffman being amazing because he always is. Um, and it's an interesting film. I think this is the film. I think this is probably the least stylistically interesting, just in terms of how it's shot. So because like John Woo's one may be bad, but at least it's interesting, I guess. This is this kind of just looks like every other kind of sort of action spy stuff that was happening around mid 2000s, like like 24 and stuff like that. It just kind of looks very similar to everything tone
I'm glad
wise.
you mentioned 24 because I'm going to mention 24.
Yeah, so I think it's all kind of there's nothing really too unique about it. But the plot I think is actually pretty good. The setup and stuff like that. Like that opening scene before it like cuts back to whatever days late earlier or whatever. That opening scene is intense. It's a fucking great way to open the film.
Yeah.
So it's a really great opening, and it really kind of really helps introduce Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, because he is truly ruthless in this film, more so than pretty much than nearly any villain really you would see in a movie. He does not give a fuck. So he's very good in this. But I think the action's largely good. It is very much more kind of brought up. I think this film actually probably is the most kind of realistic or sort of grounded, I guess, in terms of
Yeah.
its action. There's a lot of heavy duty stuff in here. Um, I think it's in a way I'd almost have it on par with the first one. And maybe the first one's a little bit better just because of it's just a bit more iconic. But I think in terms of filmmaking, I think it's just as good as the first one, if maybe just slightly less interesting with how it looks. But I think the plot is really good. Philip Seymour Hoffman elevates it massively. I think the whole dynamic with Michelle Monaghan's character is good. Um, Overall, I like it. Don't love it, but I like it. I like this movie.
It's kind of funny you talk about the introduction because I remember when Uncharted 2 came out. I don't know if either of you guys have played it, but the whole game starts with like the main character injured and hanging from a train that is hanging off of a cliff. And Abrams famously said he thought that was the greatest way he has ever seen any story opened. And so I think that there's an interesting element to that, that he opens the story kind of like with that like level of intrigue. I think he likes that sort of thing where it's like, all right, let's put you in the middle of it, which I mean isn't anything super unique, but I do think it's interesting that he seems to have an attraction towards that in a way.
Hmm.
I mean, there's certain things that Abrams does very well, right? When he's making like his projects, because I don't even know if the Star Wars projects are just kind of. I mean, that's that you can
They're not
never.
necessarily his fault.
No, and
There's a lot of problems that are going on there.
well, but as a franchise as well, that's just above being an auteur, right? You're not going to get a John Woo style Star Wars movie, or whatever. So I think, but like all the stuff that he has creative control over is, it definitely feels like he has a style, and he's pretty. I think he's good at setting up, um, like a payoff in an action series. Like that's from what I've seen from him, he does a pretty good job of giving the right amount of information to keep a story moving and to keep the intrigue high as it goes along, and then dropping the rest of the information at like a good point and dropping it well.
And I mean, he'd done so much in TV at this point too. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, when you look at it, I mean, that's TV in a nutshell in a lot of ways.
Mm,
It's like setting up that payoff over like a long period of time.
okay.
Well, the TV work is how we got. Do you guys know about how this kind of film got? I don't know if you guys kind of read about the background of production or anything
Yeah,
like that.
wasn't Fincher going to do this at one point?
So
Like,
yeah,
that was
it was
crazy.
originally David Fincher, and then he left, and then he was replaced by a guy called Joe Carnahan, who was like an
Did the
action
Gray?
director. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he left. Both of them saying creative differences, so they were like left without a director. And Tom Cruise had binge watched the first season of Alias. And he was like, "That's the dude I want. I want this guy to make." And that's why this film is just like an episode of Alias. Because he had seen Tom Cruise had watched Alias, and he had said, "This is the guy I want to make this movie." Um,
And Abrams is good in a studio too. Like that's kind of the thing he's famously good at is working in a studio system.
Mm.
So he's probably for someone like Cruise, he's probably, if Cruise says, "Hey, we should do this," he's like, "All right, that's cool."
And
Go
honestly,
for it.
that's what Kristen McQuarrie does as well. That's the kind of relationship that these later films have as well. Tom Cruise be like, "I'm gonna go ride a motorbike off a mountain." He's like, "Cool,
Yeah, go for it, man.
sounds
I don't know
fun.
how we're gonna write it in. We'll figure it out.
Enjoy." Uh, would you want to bring a camera? Is that just like your Sunday, or do you want to bring a camera along? That's you know.
Speaking of television, though, I did use the collaborative tool. So this is after Lost. Do you know how many common people from Lost and this movie there are?
Oh gosh.
And this one,
12?
no, it can't be 12. But do you mean just in the cast or in
No, like
production?
cast and crew.
Oh, and crew, I have no idea. Yeah, maybe like 12.
49.
Holy fuck.
49 people who worked on Lost are in
Is this
this.
just a Psycho situation where he just like took the production company from the TV because it was just easier?
I mean,
just
it's
to
his
keep all the
production
same
company for
people?
Lost, but like Michael Giacchino, I was listening to it, I was like, holy shit, he's just repurposing half of Lost soundtrack for Mission Impossible. I was like, that's awesome. But no, you like even little guys like honestly, one of them's in Star Wars. Like one of the pilots, like he talks to a guy at a party at the beginning. He's the pilot in the first episode of Lost, and he's in like Force Awakens for like 10 seconds. So he just likes this
Okay.
dude to show up randomly. I don't know. Abrams has his guys, I guess. And when I was looking it up, I was like, holy shit! Like he took everybody. But yeah, and you were mentioning 24. I feel like Ethan
Yeah.
Hunt's just Jack Bauer in this movie.
In this one, yeah, he's
Yeah.
kind of it's definitely 24 inspired in terms of that. I would say. Um, One thing I forgot to mention with the cast of this, and in the last one, we forgot to mention who the IMF directors were. So obviously they had. Were you guys expecting Anthony Hopkins in Mission Impossible 2?
Fuck no, I was not. I was like, what the hell?
He's not even credited, yeah. It's Anthony Hopkins briefly, and then it's Lawrence Fishburne in this one, who I forgot. So there you go. I can't remember who it is in the next one. I know who it is in the one after that, but I can't remember who it is in the next one. So that'll be a nice surprise for me next time around.
Which you were mentioning the production of this. This one costs like more than like all of them, right? Like this was expensive. Was it because of like all the switching
Um,
and changes?
I would guess probably hard part of it. Budget of this, according to
Only
Wikipedia, it's anything between 150 and 186 million.
Which in like 2006 is wild. Like that is a
Yeah.
lot of money.
It didn't
Uh,
make it a lot of money either, which is interesting.
Made nearly 400, but I guess when you take marketing into account, it's not a lot of money.
Which might
Uh,
explain why the series kind of takes a break. Like this is the
yeah,
break point, right?
yeah.
Yeah, for me, like this is like, well, to be fair, like Ghost Protocol only came out, 5 years later. So there's a bigger gap between 2 and 3 than there is between 3 and 4.
I
But
guess
for
that's
me,
true.
there's a real for me, I think there's a real stylistic break from Ghost Protocol onwards. That's when they start coming out every kind of 2 to 3 years after another. That's when it kind of really becomes a franchise at that stage. Um, from Ghost Protocol onwards, but this one is pretty. We're getting close to the tonal balance I was talking about that occurs around 2015 with Rogue Nation. We're getting close to that now. Ghost Protocol gets close as well. We're getting close to that kind of tonal balance that I was talking about that just really works for this series. I think this one's a little bit too gritty. I think if I was to say from a tone point of view, I think this goes kind of opposite of Mission Impossible 2, which is obviously very ridiculous. I think this film is maybe a little bit too dark and gritty. Um, if the for my own tastes, if I'm just talking about negatives for a moment, because I've only really said good things about it, because I do have some negatives. I think yeah, grittiness for sure. The end of the film, the kind of like doesn't really have a final set piece. I think it ends rather abruptly, for me. Um, and then I was kind of joking. Chris didn't realize I was joking with him, but I was joking with him about the MacGuffin of this film, about how well written it is. So as we all remember, the MacGuffin of this film is called the Rabbit's Foot. Could someone tell me what $200 to whoever can tell me what the Rabbit's Foot is?
If
It
you
is
stay on,
it is
if you stay on
Abrams'
the
magic
team, I'll tell you.
box.
Yeah, yeah. No, they
Well,
and they wrap it up perfectly. They say if you stay on the team, I'll tell you.
yeah, well, that's for me. That's honestly just lazy. I get where they're coming from. They wanted to keep it mysterious, I guess, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't love it. I didn't love the whole. It almost felt like a joke,
Mm.
which again is not. It doesn't fit the consistency of the tone of this film for me. So there's a few tonal imbalances for me in this one.
No, that I like that to me, the way they used humor in this film really messed with me because I was like, you're not making a funny movie, like pick a lane.
Yeah.
Because it was like silly humor in the middle of this more serious movie. It just I was like, what are you trying to do here? This is terrible writing. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't think the whole movie had terrible writing, just the way they tried to like force in humor. It felt the way that Marvel does it sometimes, where it's like, here's a joke. Um, I don't know, not a huge fan.
I think usually when you have like a gritty movie like this, usually you just have like one character, and in this usually it would be like Simon Pegg's character.
Exactly.
That would be your levity character for the whole thing.
Yeah, because he can pull it off. Trying to have Tom Cruise tell a joke in the middle in the middle of a movie like this is just weird. Like it doesn't, I don't know, didn't fit, I don't think. And also the whole, I didn't like any of the writing around Ving Rhames trying to get into his love life. I think I know what they were trying to do, but
That's weird. Yeah.
it
I
didn't.
would say the gag where he tells him that he did get married, he says, "Congratulations." I think that's the only that's the only good part of that because I think that part's actually funny.
Yeah, yeah, that was okay. Actually, to be honest, I didn't like the love story the way they like just like introduced it and the way they did it. Like I didn't, I don't know. It just felt like they needed just a tiny bit more of showing them meeting or something because it was just such a weird to come from MI2 to then like a cold opening of basically like him getting married and at the party or not cold opening but like in the early stages. Like I don't know. I just thought
Well, I
it
won't
was
give you spoilers, Chris, but I have some good news for you. Just wait until the next films, and you have some. You're gonna. If you didn't like the romance, you're gonna enjoy the next few films.
okay.
That's all I'll say without getting
Okay.
into spoilers.
All right. All right. But yeah, like the supporting cast in this was fine. Like Jonathan Rhys Meyers was fine. Um, and Maggie Q was great. She was perfectly cast, I guess, for the role. Ving
Billy
Rhames is like
Crudup, I thought was very good as well. I thought
but
Billy
Billy,
Crudup was good.
the one of the shockingly like most underappreciated handsome men in the industry. Like, like how is that guy not more popular? But anyways, um, and then yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman. I was just like he just glues you to the screen. Like his he almost comes off like a Joker character or something, where he's just into chaos and he just has no empathy in his eyes. You can see it. Man, he's chilling. Like he's so good in this.
He's very, very good. It's funny, like I said, like I've said this a bunch of times. I love Tom Cruise. I think he's an amazing leading man or whatever. But it's when Philip Seymour Hoffman shows up in this film, he just makes everyone else look like a fucking amateur.
It's true.
He's just so he's just so much better at acting than everyone else around him, and like it's not really their fault. It's just he was so fucking good. Um, yeah.
Definitely the best villain of the series so far. It's kind of set a bar for me now.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt, the best one we've seen so far. And it gets hard to top, to be honest with you. Um,
But
he's insanely good.
if we're gonna be doing summer blockbuster franchises, like maybe just one of the best villains. Like he just doesn't care. And it's awesome to watch. Like it's so good when he's on screen.
Yeah, I just found the ending very disappointing. The way, I just found it very abrupt and almost like a weird punchline ending as well to it for his character.
Mm.
I thought I was watching this because I couldn't, as I said a few times, I couldn't really remember this film very well. And I was watching this going, oh, okay, we're done. Okay, that was it.
Height bet.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, the ending fell flat for me. Because like there's so much great action sequences in this film. Like the whole
Yeah.
Vatican scene is great when they're going around the helicopters and you know the helicopters chasing after them when they're in the van and stuff. There's so much great action in this. I thought the ending was just very limp.
Mm.
That's just me though.
I think that
Any
very
final
close.
thoughts on Mission Impossible or any of the films we talked about today then?
Nope, just looking forward to seeing the kind of tonal change, see how it goes.
Oh, actually, sorry. One final tidbit that I thought that again, I just kind of read this on the production for Mission Impossible 3. So Martin Landau was in the TV series,
Yeah.
and J.J. Abrams offered him a cameo in this.
Mhm.
And when he heard it was a cameo, he was like, "Fuck no, I want more money and I want a big part." And J.J. Abrams was like, "Well, okay, no, you're not getting that." So it just
I
kind of
tried, man.
ended. Yeah, they just kind of like just put it that point. So there was almost a TV series cameo from Martin Landau, but he was like he wanted way more.
There, keep in mind, or not keep in mind, but something about the Lost franchise that saved this movie because of the production of Lost. Kenneth Branagh left, so there's a world where Kenneth Branagh plays Philip Seymour Hoffman's character.
So what
And
you're telling me is Lost continues to make amazing decisions, even accidentally. I'm
Exactly.
glad to hear it.
This movie would have been so much worse with that guy in the, I mean,
Well, I think it was actually a different. I think it was actually a different story when before J.J. Abrams came off, because Kenneth Branagh was described as playing a guy who was like a domestic terrorist, and then it also featured Carrie-Anne Moss and Scarlett Johansson, but they're apparently playing characters that aren't not in this final. So it wasn't as if it was just new casting. I think they just made a different film.
well, thank God for that.
Yeah, it's still great. Either way, we got Philip Seymour Hoffman because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I
look.
like.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Oh,
Chris,
just
sorry.
as far as final thoughts, I like this series better than Fast and Furious so far, but
That's
I'm
not a hot take.
no,
Sorry.
but I'm far from saying I love this series yet. It's like I'm curious to see where it goes.
Next episode is gonna be baller. That's
Okay,
all I'm saying.
I'm ready.
Next episode is gonna be baller. So next episode we're gonna cover the kind of beginning and end of where the new kind of direction goes. We're gonna be covering Ghost Protocol, which came out in 2011. That was produced by J.J. Abrams, but it was directed by Brad Bird. And then we're going to start with the Christopher McQuarrie film. So we're going to be covering Rogue Nation, which came out in 2015.
Does he go rogue in that
And
one?
You won't fucking believe it.
Oh man, I'm so excited.
And then also Mission Impossible Fallout, which came out in 2018. So we're going to be covering those three next time around: Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and Fallout. If you're sort of watching along with us and want to keep up, those are the three to watch in the meantime. We'll be back in a few weeks, and this podcast will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.